Welcome to the Public Access Podcast, the podcast. I am Rusty Diamond, I'm your host, and I'm here with my special guest, Felicia Linsky, because I haven't figured out if there's a way to do this differently now. I'm still experimenting with Riverside, but I think I got it. I just think I don't know. I haven't figured out all the stuff yet. So I was doing it on my computer, but I'm not getting nearly as good of a thing going with my computer as I would on my phone. So if you guys are using uh, Riverside, you let me know. You let me know how that goes. And I feel like I still need to hold this, like I have a microphone. Have you seen those microphones before that people get, like where they get like it's a 3D printed thing where it looks like a microphone, then they just put one of these in there. And so you can get one of those regular microphones, or you can probably get one of those skinny Bob Barker Price is Right microphones if you wanted. But um yeah, it's pretty neat. But thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming on the show today in the evening. Um, is this kind of your time to shine? Is this um, like what part of the day are you most on, I guess, maybe be the word.
Wow, that's a really interesting question because sometimes I really love waking up early before everybody else and having a few hours to myself. But I had to wake up early for so many years to be on film sets. So I'd be waking up before the sun would rise and have to be in a makeup trailer long before anybody else. So I'm almost right now in this space of I want to just listen to my body. I mean, we have animals, so they have their own level of demands. So we have cats that are, crying at 4:30 in the morning. It's time to eat. So they're on their rhythm. Then you're going in and out of your own REM sleep. And so if I'm not on a demand to go on a set, which right now that's shifted. I try to really listen to my own body. And sometimes I find that this time of night for me, which is 7 p.m. on the West Coast in the US, is where there's a stretch of like if everybody else has been taken care of, it's another window for me to get creative, get things done, or get super quiet. Like it really every day's.
Yeah. And so one thing, so your cats at 4:30 there, are they let's see. Do they come into your room when you're asleep, or is there a door between you and the cats when you're asleep?
So we have an open door policy to dogs and cats,
Okay.
and so they will come in and out. They will all us. They will jump in and out of the bed. They got the rest of the house. They have access to literally like we're just paying the mortgage. We're the guests. They're the
Right.
ruler. And it's not like, oh God, what a crazy house. No, it's just a really loving house that's pretty balanced with I make the running joke, it's a little Noah's Ark, cats, dogs, turtles, and indoor, outdoor, and we wouldn't have it any other way, frankly.
Absolutely. And so uh are the cats the only ones that are getting you for the food in the morning, or are there are the dogs or
That early,
turtles?
that early. Everybody gets fed in the morning. Everybody gets fed at night. We just did the dinner feeding. So
Uh,
the turtle's the only one that gets only fed once a day. And he lives outside in a pond. And
oh,
we didn't even know had him. We got our house way back in 2004 and we were blessing it. And literally, as we were like planting the sage in the ground with our prayers and blessings, all of a sudden we heard this movement in the pond. Turned to look, and there was this little red slider. And here we are 22 years later, still with
Whoa,
us. Yeah,
holy crap. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So, uh, that's incredible. So then you just had a turtle just there. And so is he hangs out in the pond, and you feed him? Like, what's that? Like, do you go up and give him some lettuce or something? Or like, what happens? How do you take care
We've
of a
we've
turtle?
definitely yeah, we've definitely sorry, I didn't mean to jump on your words. We definitely we've done a range of sorts. We definitely have had flowers in the past or lettuce. There was even a time that we had boy fish in there living all together. We even had another red slider that people knew we had him and they didn't want to take care of theirs. And that red slider escaped. I think they escape when they're like looking for mating season. Even ours escaped, and I had wanted signs throughout the neighborhood trying to find them
Whoa.
and found them somehow. Don't know how. Thank God. Because for him to get out and like get out, it's like escape from Alcatraz. It's not because
Yeah,
he's in lockdown. It's just like, scaling walls and crawling quite a bit and getting out and under. I don't think he could do that now because fences have been built differently. There's not ways to really burrow under or through. Um, and he hasn't
whoa.
tried in a long time. But yeah, yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. So he really gets like freeze dried shrimp and a form of I don't mean a kibble as in a kibble like a dog a cat kibble, but he definitely gets freeze dried stuff and he's gotten definitely like little other kind of fish that we've given him over time, and we built him a platform so he can sunbathe in the middle of the pond. And we have the pond completely surrounded with like Buddhas and tiles and different ornamentation to try to keep him from climbing up and over and escaping.
Whoa. And he's set there now. And uh, so I was going to ask, where did you find him? Like, when
In
he
the pond.
escaped?
Oh,
Oh,
and I'm sorry, in our backyard neighbor, burrowing like in plants.
did your
And
neighbor find him
well,
and said, "Hey,
we literally told, like I said, had wanted signs up all over the neighborhood. And I drove around, asking, walking around, asking, and happened to, I don't remember if it was that our neighbor found him in their bushes. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. And I went and I drove over there because they were like on a completely different road, cul-de-sac. It wasn't like I could just climb over the fence. I mean, and we were just gonna try to be very gentle with his approach. And so yeah, when I came over, found him burrowed underneath these bushes and just gently picked him up. And you also want to be like, you don't know what they're carrying or not carrying, so you want to be very careful with them, careful with how, what they get exposed to. I'm not an expert on this, even though we've had him for 22 years. Our goal has always been keep him healthy. We're probably going to have to will him to somebody because they tend to outlive humans, and And since we don't know how old he was when we first found him, but he was probably within a year or so old. So
Oh, okay.
imagine that. You know, he was
Well,
probably like this small, and he's now like this big, his shell.
whoa. What what does he enjoy doing during the day?
I mean, he just swims around and sunbathes or burrows underneath. My husband built a like a crawl space through the part that he's can climb up and sunbathe on, so he can crawl into that and do a little bit of hibernating. The pond isn't huge. I mean, my husband's been like, we really should relocate him to be with a bunch of other red sliders, but but there's a possibility that there also, if you do that, they can also get exposed to other stuff. So I almost feel intuitively it's safer. Not that I don't want him socialized, not that I don't want him with his own, tribe. I'm all about that. But there's something intuitively, like with dogs, cats, I definitely think it's important to have multiple. But with him, I don't know that he would be happy. And so yeah, I talk to him every morning when I feed him, say hi, just gave him a name a long time ago, Toady the turtle.
Tony?
And Toady, I actually didn't know if he was a
Uh,
boy or a girl. So there was a comedian in the 60s when I was a really little girl by the name of Toady Fields, who was a really funny woman, smart, funny. Um, and I don't know why. Just Toady was the name that I gave our turtle.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank
Uh,
you.
you're welcome. And so, uh, one thing I wanted to go back to, the cat's waking you up. So I had a cat that would wake us up. It was like, so like I like came into this, uh, like it was my girlfriend at the time and the cat. And the cat like at 4:30 would be, every morning just there, just ready to eat, making it known, hey, it's time to eat. And I ended up getting one of those timer things for the feeder, and it would go off like a half hour before whatever. So it'd be like, at 3:30 in the morning it would go off. But then and it would go off at night too. But like anytime it'd go off at night, I'd have to, especially once we got a couple other cats, I'd have to watch the clock, because if it got close to that time and then you hear the little motor going before that thing drops, the cats just, the claws come out, like if they're sitting on the lap, the claws come out and then they just dart off. And yeah, shit. But that was a fun one. I liked having that. That helped out uh, a bit. But so okay, so then back to, I'm going to be jumping around here a bit, I think.
Yeah.
So so you were getting up for uh, to be there, because I mean, if you're in makeup, I mean, you have to be there. You're there before most of the other crew. I mean, you're one of the first people there, and I mean, you got to kind of, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're there, and you're not like, I don't know, because I mean, are there some like where you had where it was mostly makeup all day, and then they had just a little bit of time to shoot? kind of any of those shoots, or was it?
Depends. Yeah, it depends upon the project. If it's a heavy prosthetic project, then you could be there hours in advance and have less hours on camera. But overall, I would say that there wasn't anything that was so outweighed by hours in makeup. Though there were a lot of those projects that you had very little time, your day was just that much longer. You know,
Yeah,
your day was never an 8 or a 10-hour day. Your day was more like a 15, 18, 20-hour day. And and it would just depend. And sometimes you had to have cleanup crews for shifts so you could get your main crew off the clock for a turnaround so you could come back and do it all over again. Whether it was a Star Trek or it was Planet of the Apes or whatever, any kind of bigger mm, prosthetic, heavy makeup project. And there were just a variety of them. And even if they were big storytelling with lots of cast and to put different storylines could just have commanded way more time to telling that story through the usage of the makeup. And it didn't have to be big prosthetics, but it could be a series of, you know, blood, gunshots, you know, and how the director shot it and what was going on the day. Um, or it could just be big period pieces. And it just
yeah,
required and there were hundreds of people in the scene. And that was just a lot of keeping the integrity of what that meant. But makeup, you and I both know this, having been in production, you know, makeup was one of the departments besides transportation or whomever, depending upon where you were filming, that always generally had the earlier calls prior to rehearsals to get certain people through the works or established. So by the time the main crew call occurred, that a lot of or a good portion of work was done and ready. So then they just had to get into their costumes and get some tweaking done. And again, it just depends. Maybe there were more than, a 15, 30 minute follow up, after rehearsal. Maybe there were a couple hours, but generally the whole goal was to be able to start filming right away because you have a lot of expenses. Once you get a whole crew there on set, that's the money is going out the door.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, so then are you having, uh, I mean, so like, were you having any times where it was you had like a lot more freedom to do what you wanted to do with it than others, or was it like, because I mean, how does that come down? Is it you have pictures like someone draws something up with I don't know, a colored pencil or something and says, "Here, this is what we want," or is it like we know what you're doing, get this look, or is it or how's that work, I guess?
So it's interesting and it's a great question. So when I started in fashion editorial, commercials, and independent filmmaking. And I was designing right out the gate. And I was really lucky to
Oh,
be able to do that. I was self-taught, really, really, really
oh,
fortunate. I mean, I came from a fine arts background. I came from a film background. I came from a medical background. I came from a fashion background. I was a trained illustrator, painter, sculptor, photographer, filmmaker. And then I had this really deep medical background. And
oh,
so, but I also grew up around fashion and hair, and I did a lot of theater. So my brain was just always like firing creativity. And I also understood history. I understood art history. I understood periods. I understood, and I cut hair as well as did makeup. And I work with men as well as I work with women. And I work with cultures, not just one culture. So I had even become the only white on the black hair Olympic team right out of college, which was like, what is that? But it was a competitive side of the hair world, and I was just one of these people who was just, I loved it all. I just, however I could be creative, however I could continue to be curious and the best at whatever it was that I put my mind to. I wanted to bring value. I didn't even know that was what consciously I was doing. I just believed in just being very well versed. And so when I started in film, I wasn't even in television. I mean, yes, commercials I was, but I never really practiced television, funny enough. But when I started in feature films and independent world, and this was in the early 90s, at like at a really cool time of independent films, nobody was telling me what I could or couldn't do. They trusted me
Uh,
for how they hired me as an expert. Then, and for me, what was really, really important was not only visually telling a story. So the way I was trained as a filmmaker, I mean, I really had a very, very vast film background in my studies. It wasn't just go out and shoot film and be a good DP and a good director. No, I mean, I studied a lot of films, how films were made, why films were told the way they were, composition, storytelling. All I would sit in a room with Charlie Chaplin movies and just watch Charlie Chaplin, tell a story. So I knew the importance of visually having no sound, no word, and visually having an impactful, like you knew the emotion that was happening, you knew the time, you knew you knew all the things and why the arc of the character was going through what they were expressing in the moment. So you could follow along. And so it was really important to me as a storyteller. See, I think I shared this with you, that I wasn't at the time allowed to direct as a woman.
uh,
Women just weren't welcome to direct in the early 90s. There's a little bit more of that. You're seeing that now. So that's why I went into makeup and hair. And that was never my plan. It was what it was. So I used it, even though I didn't know how I was going to make that happen. I used it to my advantage of still being a storyteller, still being a filmmaker, still being in the entertainment industry. And one of the things that was super important to me was continuity, because when you're telling story, you as an audience will notice when something isn't consistent, when something jumps, when something is like, where's the wedding band, where's the eyelash, where's the ponytail, where's the hair was here, now it's there, why is blood on and now blood's off. And so it was really, really important to me to be a really consistent storyteller, so that when editors came to edit the film or when audience watched a movie, I only had control over what I had control over, which was just being on top of my work. And you don't
yeah,
shoot it in order, shoot it completely
yeah.
out of order. So you've got to really pay attention and really document your work so that it
So,
piecemeals together like a puzzle.
so then back before digital film, uh, how
Mm-hmm.
were you documenting the continuity? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now people can just get here, take a picture. Was it Polaroids or was it
It was Polaroids. It was
okay?
Polaroids, and there was no video village. So you couldn't even watch a take. You had to pay attention on a film set.
Okay, so then when so where were you usually located during the filming? Like
Right
where
near
were
the
you
direct,
usually?
right near
Okay,
director and right near the action.
so then okay, so then you were, I mean that's getting probably the best uh experience of that part of it, like being that close to the director and like then so then you're getting that part as well. So um I mean, are you just, I don't know, like that would be like where's your head during all that? Is it trying not to like, is it, look for this, make sure that nothing is off, or is it like trying to take it all, like how much can you take in at that point? Or is it just you're just in your mode and then you sort it out later?
I believe that it was my job to help everybody tell the story, help the actor be in that, in the in the most, being able to tell the story and through their character, to help the director tell the story through, the story that they're trying to tell from a script perspective, and do my part in all of that seamlessly. So if a actor is running and, like I have to have continuity with sweat, or if they're crying, I have to be ready for them to be able to have tears and not take them out of the emotions and be able to jump in and jump out. That's why I have to be so present. And not everybody in my position operates that way. Some of
Yeah,
us are just more wired to be very in the moment and in the game and in the result driven participation. I mean, I was just built to be a passionate filmmaker, and makeup and hair was just the outlet at that point. And
and
working seamlessly with those people, producers, directors, DPs, actors, script supervisors, and all other departments as a unit.
yeah, and so I mean, I don't know. So I mean, is that common for the people in your position to be doing that as much? Because I feel like it's not all that common doing it how you were. I feel like they were around, but I don't feel that there was as much attention to the nuances as you're describing, and um, more. I don't know. Maybe I was missing out and I wasn't paying attention enough, but it sounds like yours is more in depth than what I've noticed.
I think each and every one of us came with our own strengths, came with our own passions, came with our own vision, came with our own background. Um, you know, when I got into it, what I didn't know that I was gonna do my second and third movie was gonna be Fangoria movies, horror movies, and I was going to be aligned with what's now some of the biggest effects people in the industry. And these guys were all growing up thinking about monsters and monster movies and those kind of like just that whole arc of just that genre. That's not how I came up. I came up with like, you know, the way we were, and Kramer versus Kramer, and like really, dialogue driven, real, like heart to heart, real, like emotional, like big, it was like everything from big movies from The Godfather, and like it was just, and I'm not saying those guys didn't love that, of course they did, but they were just monster, 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 and I was like reality, reality. And so it was super interesting to come into this world and be like, wow, my head never was like that. I was thinking about like the anatomy of a human being meets fashion, meets period, meets composition, meets storytelling. And these guys were monster, 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 and gore, gore, gore. And I was just like, wow, my head's just not wired that way. And the irony was then, you know, telling horror stories. And the beautiful thing was my medical background and my art background really paid off because I was always bringing reality into it, along with just how I like telling story. I wasn't going to be an abstract artist when it came to blood. I wanted to tell it like you got sick seeing it because I told it so realistically with the way I did blood work or whatever. It's like that was
Yeah.
really important to me.
Uh, and it can be overlooked by so many people. It can just be like, let's just have a shitload of blood just to have blood. And, there's got to be a reason behind it. There's got to be, you know, yeah, I mean, it's great to get blood, but yeah, if there's, if it's just to do it, or it's just to have something, there's got to be that why, and then that part also where the people that are watching it are in it, like that they understand because it's something that's like, oh yeah, that's what happens. I've seen that happen, and yeah, that whole, you can't really get taken out of that moment. If you get taken out of that moment, then where does that leave you, and how long does it take you to get back, if you do get back?
Well, and that's it. As an audience member, we're there to entertain and tell a story for the audience. And you can never forget the audience perspective. And so that's why, even like just take blood, for instance, for me, it's like, is it fresh blood? And if it's fresh blood, what's the color of fresh blood that comes out of a body? Versus if it's old blood, how old is it? How long has it been old? Is it hours? Is it days? Like tell a story, really tell a story. And I'm not saying that my peers don't care. Of course they care. But every one of us is different. Every one
Right.
of us is different. And every one of us, like I said, comes with a different background of how they got there. And no
Yeah.
one story is the same. No
Well,
one background is the same.
and so what are what are the questions being asked when you're asking these questions? Like, or are you asking a lot of the questions, or are you assuming like what you were just asking, like how old is the blood? How long has this been here? Like, how are they reacting to this when you're asking these questions? And is it, um, yeah, I don't know, where do you go with that?
Again, another great question, and it depends. So, first off, when you break down a script, hopefully the script is giving you a lot of information. So then when you're breaking down your script and whether it's day or night, whether it's minutes or hours gone by, try to like typically in my mind, I'm trying to figure this out, but if it doesn't dictate it, and when you break down a script, you're going from day one is now turned into night one. Night one goes into day two. Day two goes into night two. If you have a script that, continues, if it's past a 24-hour period of time, and not all scripts are, not, I've shot Stephen King movies that literally were 24 hours out, that were shot over 3 months. And it was just a
Well,
24-hour story. So, you have to be really continuity like on it
yeah.
big
And
time.
so, uh, I mean, are you? And then with that, like, I mean, do you have like a book or something that you're taking all these notes in, or are you the book, or is it like how documented do you have it? And then what have you done with that documentation? Does it belong to the the film itself and then it gets destroyed, or is it did you hold on to any of that, or is that like stuff that's just kind of gone forever, or is it all up in your head?
There's no way anybody worth their salt would have it all up in their head because you are doing too much for too long, over too many days, year and months and hours to keep that in your head. You have to have it so broken down. These are why we have what's called continuity books, or continuity files. Everything has shifted since digital. Um, but it's still continuity. And every
Yeah.
character has their arc, their visual arc of how they start, how they evolve, how they finish visually with their hair and their makeup. And you have to clock that. You have to document it because when you're shooting on a continuity, you got to know how to fit that piece into the puzzle, how that makes sense, and have that already mentally prepared. Because on the day, that day that you're filming those particular scenes, you've already broken down everything so you know exactly how you're going to be executing that look for that day, what has happened in that moment, if their hair is disheveled, if they're sweat, if they're 3 days without sleep, if they have 2 days growth of beard, if they are fresh and clean, just had a shower. There's just like all those nuances. You've got to think about the character, where they're at, what they've been exposed to, what their affluence, like all the things within crevices that builds that story so it becomes so real.
And so, I mean, yeah, that's a whole lot to be holding on to. And I mean, what's kind of your organization like? I would say, as opposed to while you are working to when you are not working. Are those kind of the same organization, or is it pretty different? Have you gone and taken what you've learned working and put that into your regular life, or is that two separate organizational skills? Because yeah, I'm someone who has trouble with some organization for the most part, and so yeah, I was wondering kind of what you do if you picked up tricks from that, and or if you're at the end of the day, organization is out the window, or how that works with you.
I like methods, I like systems, I like structure. I also like to have a very laissez-faire attitude. I mean, if I had my druthers, it would be like, sleep, eat, make love. But the point of the matter is when it comes to running a home, running a business, running a team, you got to have structure, you got to have a method, you got to have clear communication, you got to have things organized in order for the ship to run smoothly, so to speak. So the household's got to be similar to that, as well as, the cleaner and more organized you are, the more successful you are. The more in place things are, the more they go back into the same place. So things don't get lost, so that is the toothpaste, in the same container with the toothbrush, and when it's empty and it needs to be replaced, you have a backup ready to go. Like there's just that kind of system. And I was raised around businesses and people that ran households and businesses that were very organized. And I learned that at a very young age. And I liked being I like being a leader. I like being responsible. I like being reliable. I like knowing where things are. I'm very Virgo. I like things in their place. And as a creative, don't get me wrong, I like being creative, but when I walk into my space, I want to know that things are like in their place.
Right. And I mean, just how much time can be spent looking for something, and then, if you don't know where it is, and then you go and you multiply that, and see how much it is during the day, how much time is spent looking for something. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier when it all goes into a place where you don't have to do that, and where, because I mean, I feel like only the last few years or so that I've been working on that and finding out ways where I've been able to, it's not just I know this pile over here. This pile over here, I know what's in that pile, to now it's going through and sort of, documenting everything and seeing like what can be made faster, like what can be like, even if it's moving something like up from one area to another area, so I'm not spending time, you know, standing up and reaching over here, and like, and then over the course of the day, it's, an extra, 10 minutes, and over the course of a week, it's, almost an hour. And, like, oh shit, well, like, I'm spending an extra hour doing that when I can just move this here. And, but I mean, so then, because, and you're always, not always, but most of the time in different places. So you're not in your actual, you're a mobile studio all the time. And so,
Right.
yeah.
Which
So,
makes it even more reason why you have to stay organized, because you're constantly packing and unpacking. And when you're on a set, you're building makeup bags for each of your actors. And then you have your main bags, then you have your trailer, and you're in different locations all the time. So if you're not organized and you're not really paying attention, you can really get lost very easily. And then when you're on set and all of a sudden you need a Q-tip meets a Band-Aid meets blood work meets, you know, lipstick meets eye drop. If you don't have all those things, boom, right there, all those things right there, accessible, it's fairly MacGyver-ish, but it's what it is. It's like
yeah.
you're the mother meets the kitchen, meets the artist, meets the caretaker, meets the problem solver, meets the storyteller. And the more on top of it, and the more prepared you are, and the more you have that accessible, the less problem you are, the more problem solving you are, the bigger, greater value you are. And the more, that being an asset and just being able to stealthily get in and get out and do like magic is what it is. You're creating magic.
So then people are, uh, when people are expecting magic, um, then what is it? And then, like, so like, if you're not there one day, and, let's say you get sick, I mean, and there all this magic is happening sort of behind the scenes. Um, I mean, I'm sure it can throw off a lot. And I mean, so I don't know. So what happens, like, if you're not there one day? Like, there's, I assume, other makeup, uh, and, that were in your department. So then are they, I don't know, like, if some of that magic isn't happening, then, like, are they taking care of enough of it, like, where it's Or is it like you're waking up and you're like, I gotta be there because I need to be there. I need to be part of this. Um, how's that work?
Well, the industry has been a space, in my humble opinion, where you don't have room to get sick, and that it is performative. And that's not only replaceable. And again, it has nothing to do with not trusting one another, but there's a lot of innuendos that go into it. There's a lot of unknown that goes into it. And so you have to do your best to always be on. Now, with that said, I would say in my entire career up till now, I can tell you there was only 2 times that I ever missed. The first time was in 2016. It was literally one day that I had to have surgery for papillary thyroid cancer. I made sure I scheduled it on a day that was we were going to be going into a Memorial Day weekend. I had everything so scripted out for my team, knowing that they could be thrown anything so that they weren't, even if they were, that they would never feel like anything the ball wasn't dropped. But I can't predict how hundreds of people are going to respond. I can only do my best to prepare my team with with all the possibilities. And I did that. And I literally remember being in the hospital and being in meetings completely drugged up at like 7, 8, 9 at night, and my executive producers had no idea that I'd just been through
Oh,
major surgery. And the reason why they didn't know was because not because I'm not honest, but because I understood under the circumstances that if they knew what was going on, they would take any opportunity to replace my team. And I did not want my team to lose their income. I didn't want
cool.
myself to lose my income. I didn't want my team to lose their income. So I did whatever I could to protect them, knowing that that was the agenda. And, we did that. We did that successfully. I know that when we did things in other projects, which are called double ups, where you're running 2 episodes at the same time, and I was responsible for the lead actress who was on both episodes running at the same time. If I was running one team and my partner was running another team, but I was going through back and forth to both shows, to both episodes being filmed, then when I'd have to leave the one episode that I was running the department while also taking care of this actress and other actors, then my continuity and my breakdown, my communication had to be so on point with my team so they never felt like they weren't being taken care of on top of who they had to take care of. So it was really science of the mind. I'm not saying it operates that way. I don't know how everybody else operates. I know how I operate. I want it to be where you never feel like you are left without information. How you analyze it, how you duplicate it, how you deliver it. I don't have control over you as a human. You're a human, you're not a robot. But I do my best to also have around me, and that's not always guaranteed, to have people around you that have your back. I've had people around me who haven't had my back. It's a variety of experiences. Some people, you know, you're going to have great outcomes, and other times you're not. And it's not going to be about the artistry, it's going to be about the fear and the insecurity and the ego that you're dealing with that has nothing to do with telling the film or doing the work.
Right. And, yeah, it's all part of that experience, whether, if it's good, not good or bad or whatever, it's an experience. It's what's
Experience.
gonna be happening. And
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So were there like any times with, how do I say this? That you were, felt like you were transitioning more into directing of also, because you said you were wanting to get into directing. Like, was there a time when you were switching towards that part, like, and trying to, like, not trying to, but like taking over more responsibilities of those other parts with other projects, or was it mainly uh, staying in your lane?
I think that as a collaborator, there's a lot of levels to this answer. As a collaborator, you got to respect each other's responsibilities and not step on people's toes. But also coming
Yeah,
up through independent filmmaking, I did have opportunities to do um a lot of kind of directing of effects when it came to certain executions of things that were going on from a timing perspective, but I wouldn't have referred to myself as a director. And I would say that it would be in those kind of moments. I mean, even if even if technically you are, you're not. Let's not let the ego like run away.
yeah,
You're doing what's best for the getting the moment on, and you're just doing your best to communicate it to your team, to your director, to your DP, to at your ADs, so that when the moment happens, everything is happens. The artistry happens. So you get less takes with the best, orgasm, so to speak, in the moment. And
yeah,
for that reason alone, you want to be on point and make sure that everybody is in ready position. So from a directing perspective, oh yeah, I definitely made certain, but I also will be frank, like, and I don't mean this in any way, you know, film for many, many years was very much very male oriented, very
sure.
heavy in men's crews. And it didn't mean that I didn't have respect or wasn't respected, but there's a lot of dancing through some moments. And ironically, in independent films, sometimes I almost had more freedom and more what felt more respected than once I got into union films. And it wasn't that it was less, it was just that then there were more games and more hurdles and more things you had to work through, more politics and more ego and bigger players and bigger things to deliver. Never scared me, never worried me, never concerned me. More importantly, I never went into it thinking I was getting into a competitive market. I never once thought about the fact that I was getting into a competitive world. I always had very idealistic glasses on. And some people are like, how did you never think of it as being competitive? I said, because I just never operated that way. I didn't go into filmmaking to be competitive with others. I went into filmmaking to be a storyteller, an artist, and do something collaborative with really highly intelligent visual artists. That was my approach. I never to this day thought of it as, oh, I'm going to be competitive and I'm going to outdo you. Listen, I'm competitive with myself. I'm not competitive with you. If so I just so yeah, there were times when there were some pretty unearthing moments where like, wow, I never saw that coming, and I'm not like coming from living under a rock, but wow, okay, if you need it that badly that you've gotta, you know, do things to other people to get to where you need to go. Well, I don't want to be doing that work with you. I don't want to be creating with you. I don't want to be doing business. But the sad truth of that was it could very much affect your salary, your income, your household by these shooken moments of the kinds of characters you were working around and with having nothing to do with just being a great filmmaker.
And Toady has to make sure that Toady has a good life as well, and
Yeah.
living the good life. And uh, and I like that you were always under the uh, wanting to do what's best for the picture itself, and being able to, you know, whatever else is going on, like that's the main part of it. I mean, that's the goal that needs to happen. Like that's what everyone ideally should be doing. Um, whether they are or not, it's what you're doing, and that's pretty cool. And so, I mean, like, are you? So I'm okay. So let me jump into it. So then you got into more writing than now, right? Uh, you
So for
jumped
me
more right.
personally, yeah, writing and mindfulness on and how that happened for me was in 2022. I got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and I was on the Joker 2 movie, and I had to, and when I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, I had to make a decision to put my life first versus a movie and a job. And so I resigned from my position, which was a first, and first in my entire
Wow.
career. And so I could go through surgery and then chemo. And that lasted what I thought was going to be a month, just going through surgery, and I was fine. I was literally fine. But and I was really, really lucky because I'd been misdiagnosed for 4.5 months, and I was speaking up the whole
Holy
time.
shit.
So yeah, so I knew that I had really had to put my health and wellness first, and nobody was going to do it if I didn't do it. And so inevitably, I left the movie, um, which was heartbreaking because I really loved who I was working with, and um, and I recovered from my surgery really well. But then my doctors told me, "Look, we know we got it, and most women don't survive ovarian cancer, and therefore we want you to go through chemo, even though we know you don't want to, because we want to make sure that microscopically we've got everything." And I was like, man, I do not want to be doing this. They're like, no, you don't. And I had this really long, what I call, excuse me, long, fuckable hair. Like it was just messy, wild hair. And um, and they were like, yes, and you're gonna lose all that gorgeous head of hair, and you're gonna go through some stuff, but you're gonna come through it because we really believe that you're one of the few that can survive. And so I was like, okay. So um, all this is to say, I went through that from November 22, December 22, through till May 23 when I went into remission. When I went into remission is when the writers and actors struck. They went on strike. And that was kind of the beginning of well, the pandemic kind of started the whole, not beginning of the end, but this major shift in Hollywood when streaming took off. But that seed was planted way back in like 2008 with what, but that new media that became streaming took off in 2020. Now 2023, in our unions, every union has a 3-year contract. Whether you're the Writers Guild, Directors Guild, the what's called whether it's called the International Guild, which encompasses everybody from camera to costumes to makeup, props, the whole under that umbrella. And writers and actors went on strike in May of 23. Well, that strike lasted 6 months, and it had a huge impact on the industry because it affected the entire world industry, frankly. Now, granted, did it affect like a Bollywood, or did it affect, independent filmmakers? No, because they weren't affected. But anybody union related, you couldn't make a film with a union script because union writers were on strike. So inevitably, it ended up that, from that perspective, what ended up happening was I was in remission, still healing, and figuring out what it was that I was going to do, because I had never not been on a set 80 hours a week. And I had been told over time that I was a writer, but I didn't really trust that I was a writer. But I was writing a lot since 2020. And I had written screenplays in the 90s. But again, I wasn't really seeing myself that way because I never had time to see myself that way. I never developed it the way other people believed in me, starting with my mom, who was a writer. And I never
Whoa.
really understood why she thought I was a writer until after we lost money and I started writing and really expressing myself. And so all that came full force, like came out as I started really expressing myself, doing a lot of writing, which was another form of art for me. And I started studying my work back in like 2018. So it was already pre-pandemic, and I got certified and all that. And through that, I started writing like programs and how I want, if I, because I work with clients in transformation, with their makeup and hair or other. So I started writing, and then that led to me like collaborating with a best-selling book that with a bunch of entrepreneurs all over the world. And then it came to me writing this last book, Reclaim You, which is more of a self-development, personal self-development kind of a way of helping people get out of their own stuckness, their own transitions, their own traumas through life shifts that happens to all of us, whether they're good or sideways or, traumatizing, but in the most, like what I say, appetizer morsel, sort of taking little bites and giving yourself permission. And it's just, for me, writing is a great way for me to express my artistry in my communication. I'm very Smith like. I like words, I like expression. And so yeah, it's definitely a muscle that I've definitely worked out a lot more in the last few years. And I'm sure my mother, who's unfortunately we lost at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic really took over the world, and thankfully she didn't die from that. But I think she's probably extremely thrilled that I'm writing as much as I am.
Yeah, and so I mean, she was not seeing that part. She was seeing the writing before, but she wasn't seeing this part of the writing. Uh, okay, wow. And so and then you have all this together, and So I mean, like when you're writing, are you, is she coming up in your head during that? Like, what would she be doing at this point, or is it just sort of natural and it's like, oh, I see my mom in here at this part that I was writing, or is it maybe a little of each?
So my mom was definitely like a literature, like very deeply rich, ingrained in literature, excellent literature. And she taught English, and she was a journalist and a writer. And she was smart as a whip and very intuitive. So I'm very much like, and when I say that with humility, that I'm definitely my mom's kid in the sense of like the scene thing, the intuition. I'm not claiming I'm smart as a whip. So when I say that, that's what I'm describing her. That's not what I'm saying about me. But I definitely see things, and I definitely see things before, I see things. I'm an observer. And so then in my observations, then I like my head goes into story and not like my own little soap operas. It's just like, I know what's funny. I know what makes me laugh. I know what I know what hurts. I know what feelings are. I've experienced it all. I've experienced a lot of life. And I think of writers like Nora Ephron meets Carrie Fisher meets, Felicia Linsky. Like I want it to be smart and funny, but really poignant and life changing. And I want people to get visual impact when I'm telling story. And it can be short or it could be deep. And I'm very deep, but I like to be funny, but I tend to go deep and I like to be real. So it's a lot of like, oh, wait, strap yourself in because here we go.
Yeah. I mean, so then you thinking, how does this go? Like, how is it going to get to these points, or is that just sort of there and then you're going, oh, okay, this is that way? Or are you thinking, I need to do more of one of these traits?
So it's interesting right now, as soon as I launched Reclaim You, which is this last book I self published, I immediately started writing another book and I came up with a
Oh,
screenplay. And so those things I started firing off. And I was like, whoa, girl, like just hold on. Like you need to promote this other book. And I was like, but my brain was just like firing these ideas. And it's interesting because somebody who was trained to illustrate and paint and sculpt and be a photographer, filmmaker, and then translated that to hair and makeup. For me currently, even though I do those things, I almost translate that more into a product and service kind of way of being. Like now I, help people with like getting the number one Korean skincare access, or, makeup that they can get directly to them and help them build their palettes and help, women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s be like, come on, you got to keep going and care a little bit about yourself. I mean, you don't have to wear a string up your ass, but you can still care about how you feel and look. It's like, I
yeah,
mean, I'm no centerfold, for God's sake. I'd be more of a Reuben, but no, I'm not going to be like out on the beach, like showing up, but I still want to like show up. I still want to feel good, and I want to still feel sexy, and women should, and they shouldn't be written off by a certain age, or just because they're going through menopause, or whatever the hell they're going through. Like it doesn't
yeah,
matter. Like show up, care. Like, and so that's my Nora Ephron, Carrie Fisher side of me. Like I've always had a twist with the trauma. There's always got to be like the cannoli with the like, and she just died. I mean, it's just, I mean,
yeah.
there's got to be like, oh my God, there's got to be heart. And so,
Oh,
That's what's coming out of me these days. And I've always been that person. I've always been that person. I just went through a lot of life stuff where she didn't get to come out. And I'm just getting her to come back out again.
And so when she's coming back out, is it all the time, or are there times where you're thinking, where the fuck are you? What are you, where are you? I need to do something with this now. Are you getting uh, you getting stuck at any parts, or is it been pretty free flowing the whole time? Or if you do get stuck, what happens when you get stuck?
So it's not the creativity that gets stuck. It's been this transition that has felt at times, which is also why I created the consulting programs that I created for high achieving professionals who my mission statement is listening to the whisper before it becomes a scream, learning to put yourself first before everything and everyone else. Learn how to put the mask on first, like they say in the airplane. Put the mask on first before you put it on somebody else. But most high achieving professionals are so performative oriented. They're so the monkey showing up dancing. They don't even know that that's what they're doing because they're so programmed to, God forbid, if I don't deliver, I'm not going to get the promotion. I'm not going to, climb up the ladder in Wall Street. I'm not going to. And it's like, and they don't even hear their own truth anymore. And that I know is very true in most people's lives, whether they want to admit it or not. And by the way, most don't want to admit it. Most will just hear somebody like me talk and be like, that's big, whatever. Who cares? That's not me. But the truth of the matter is, 9 out of 10 of us, that is us. I mean, unless you're some yogi in the middle of Costa Rica and you don't have a care in the world, and money isn't your issue and life isn't your issue, and I mean, and I don't know how it isn't, you're
Well,
lying to yourself, because we're all wired to perform. We're all wired to show up and do something, deliver, create, be a purpose. And then to what degree are we doing that? And God forbid now with like social media and algorithms, all the things, it's like more, 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 more. And and we're all filled with this noise. We're all filled with noise. We most of us don't even know what peace and quiet is, right?
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, just being able to, like you were saying, you too, even the putting the mask on, like, and that's something that I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of people I work with that don't care about putting the mask on themselves. And, it's like, well, all right, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not going to work. It's great for now. But wait until that, like, something's going to happen. There's going to be something, and you can either be prepared for it or not. If you can go in, it's great if you want to help out people every day of your life, but you're also only giving them half as good of what you can do. Like you have your like as much as you think you're giving them, you're only giving them sort of a half-assed attempt at what you can do and what you're capable of. Like I think a lot of people are a lot more capable than they think they are, but are just so into wanting to make sure other people are fine first and then they'll be fine. But I mean, you're just sort of going on instinct then, and you're in that fight or flight mode, flight, freeze, fawn, without knowing it also. And then that's also, you're gonna do whatever. And also at that point, you can't take in any new information when you're in that zone in your head. And so, I mean, so what part did mindfulness happen? Like, where did that come from? Like, how did that get into what you were doing? Where did, where was that nugget coming from?
I think the nugget, I talk about how in the last like decade or two, more in the more recent decade, this limited beliefs, scarcity mindset, the mindfulness, these terms that we've been using lately. I think I've I've encompassed mindfulness for way longer than it became a word that's been actively utilized more frequently. I mean, I was a science of the mind kid in like 20 years of age. I was a kid at a much younger age, probably 7, 8, 9, where people were coming to me and, my little peer group and asking for advice. And I would mindfully talk to them in a way that was very comforting and working out the problem in the way that was healing and problem solving and getting a benefit and a result and giving value, like, and mindfulness is really, being present. It's being present to the moment. It's being present to the trauma. It's being present to the person so that they feel seen and feel heard. And so ironically, after my diagnosis with ovarian cancer, all of my doctors, these top doctors, all wanted me to go back to med school. And I was like,
Well,
yeah, I'm not going back to med school. I mean, I'm complimented. I actually thought they were kidding. I was like, you are not kidding. No, we're totally serious. We need doctors like you. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not a doctor. I feel I am a healer. I definitely feel, and I don't like using that word loosely. Matter of fact, it's really interesting. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday who I met a little post pandemic on this other group of people. And she said to me yesterday, and I don't know if she was like mad or upset or not mad or upset, but she was like, well, I never knew you were a spiritual practitioner. And I said, well, because I'm not going to wear a sandwich board on my chest saying, I like do have like it's a way of being. If you have to like tout it, yes, I get that sometimes I may mention it, but I'm not going to say to you 24/7, I've studied and practiced with world renowned healers, and we are healing the world as we've been doing this work for like the last 9 or 10 years. Like, do I, why do I need to say that? That to
right.
me is not the point,
Yeah.
you know?
Uh, yeah. It's, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, if you have to tell people that, are you really, I always like saying if you have to tell someone or something that you're punk rock or something's punk rock, like that kind of destroys all the credibility of that right away. And it's just, it's what it is. And it's how we work, it's how people get feeling better, whether it's ourselves or whether it's other people, and whether it's the work that anyone's doing. It's just, yeah, it's what it is, where it belongs. And uh, so then, yeah, I mean, if you're always doing, but it just didn't have a name. And I mean, like you said, it's only now that it's gotten a name, but it's kind of gotten a bastardized name of it at somewhat, and it's like everything is that, but not everything is that. It is, but it's also not at the same time. It's, yeah.
Right. Right. I mean, no, I didn't become a monk the way my teachers and the school of practice. And the reason why, I studied with the people I personally studied with was because I wanted to take it out into the world. I wanted to take it collectively with all my life and professional experiences instead of going back to med or becoming a therapist. I wanted to be able to do something that I could apply and help others, be of service, and help them through these life moments that I knew firsthand, that I've
Yeah,
lived firsthand personally as well as professionally, and be able to be a leader and a transformational consultant in business or in with individuals and make it applicable that people could literally have a roadmap that would transform them either again individually or collectively in a business atmosphere so that they could see that actual positive shift and it's not like you're sitting on a couch for 12 years getting the same chase your tail crap where you're actually making things happen. And I think that my own personal experience, not that it's any more unique than anybody else, but collectively, I have lived quite a few different lives and I have successfully gotten through some pretty traumatic things that many people don't survive, you know, and yet on the other side of that, I've also lived these lives that other people would give their eye teeth to have experienced one day, let alone 30, 40 years of, so you combine my childhood met with and my cultural makeup met with my education, met with my career, met with domestic violence and six bouts of cancer, and yet you're award-winning artist in Hollywood, and now you came from the fine art and pre-med and theater and film, and and you're a writer and you're this, and you've been all these things. It's like people's brains explode.
right.
And all
And
that is to say is, I'm so sorry. All that is to say is, that's why I can hear you and see you, and I can help you.
yeah, and I mean, if you said you were a doctor or a therapist, that would be it. And you're fucking way more than that. And I mean, saying those two things would be, quite limiting. And so, if people are ready to work with you and find your work, they can go down here and that you know or how if you want to tell people how they find you or work with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can find me on my site, FeliciaLinsky.com. And that's where you can find my book, you can find my programs, you can book, people work with me in 60-day intensives or 6 month or 1 year intensives. Some people just want a breakthrough session, but I believe transformation doesn't happen in an hour or two. Transformation happens over a period of time. So most of my clients, the 60-day intensive is like, this is a great way to see what it's like to work together. And it's a great way to really see some shift. And then if you're ready to really roll up your sleeves and do the work, then you work, in a longer, bigger period of time with really activate, like where things stick like glue. And that's what real transformation takes. It doesn't, I call it like a living sculpture. It takes taking that piece of clay and really molding it and being able to walk back in the room and go, oh, the tushy needs a little, carved off of this area. And then you go back in and you get to see the full body. You go, oh, that works, but oh, wait a minute, this needs it. And it's an adjusting, and going out and doing the work and applying it to your life and coming back and recalibrating and realigning and seeing what works and what doesn't work and what you're ready to let go of so that you can be freed up to allow in more of what's working for you in this now moment. And thing that I do with you is I truly consult you because I truly hear you and see you, and I customize what is needed for you for where you're at. I meet you where you're at, what you're experiencing today, whether it is your health or whether it is your career or whether it is your relationship or a combination. Because most of us are going through combo play. We're in a smorgasbord. We're in a serving it up kind of. And I just that's the way I talk too. I like, I bring in all the like, food gets tossed. Like I'm talking like I'm loving into you in a way that you
Right.
feel held and cared for, and you transform.
And yeah, and so yeah, when people are ready for that, that's where you go. You go to you, and I like that a lot. And so yeah, thank you so much for being on here and talking about whatever, everything from uh, up to there, um, and I like that a lot. And so
Thank you,
uh,
Rusty.
yeah, you're welcome. And
I do have a freebie that if you want to offer your listeners, that I'll send over a link for you as well, that
yeah,
if that's okay.
yeah,
And that's a great way to start asking yourself some questions that I ask you as a client. It's called Whisper to Power, and it's a great way to start self-reflecting, and then it can lead you, to me in a way that you can start to get into the world of what I offer my clients.
I like that a lot. Yeah. So yeah, send it over in Messenger here when we get done, and I'll get that up on the internet, up on the website. No, whatever. On this thing,
That
on
thing,
the
the thing,
podcast. Yeah, the whole
yeah,
thing out there and
yeah,
everything. Where
the
yeah,
galaxy,
the galaxy. That's where it is.
yeah.
Well, so yeah. Appreciate you, and yeah, appreciate the conversation. And anyone that needs to get a hold of me, rustydiamond.net. I haven't figured out how to uh, do this with on my phone where I, you know, uh, end it by myself. So I'm just going to start ending it with the guest here. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and I will get that out into the galaxy, and this will go out in the galaxy and welcome all the people in the galaxy. And so, all right, have a great day, and that is the show, man. Boom.